Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And before I get into this video, I just want to say a very special thank you to all of you that watched my video the last 2 days and left comments and left questions. It means so much to me. I love this channel so much, and I love being able to talk about addiction and recovery on just a daily basis. And even if I'm just reading a meditation and I apply the meditation to some part of recovery, it's just I'm so passionate about talking about addiction and recovery, and it weaves through every area of my life. And so I feel so blessed that I have just a special place to talk about it. I try to talk about it on all my channels, but to have like one specific place to be able to talk about it, I absolutely love. And it's interesting because, so if you guys don't know, my mom got sober 6 months after I did. My sobriety date is December 17th of 1994. My mother's sobriety date was June 2nd of 1995, and she died a month before her sobriety date. So, well, actually like 3 weeks before her sobriety date. So we had together, 12 years and 11 months of sobriety where we spoke the language of recovery together and got to share stories. And, we didn't talk a lot about our drinking and using days back then. It was mostly talking about just all of the gifts of recovery and, sharing stories with each other and things like that, of things we had learned. And it was such an amazing life, to be able to come over to my mom's house and have a cup of coffee with her and go to the pool with my mom. And we would talk about all this kind of stuff. And it allowed me to have that relationship with my mom, My mom's sobriety, and I would say this to any parent out there that is still struggling with recovery, my mom getting sober allowed me to have an adult relationship with my mother, which I am so entirely thankful for, because up until that point, I had very much played the parent in that relationship, even when I was using, And then my mom got sober and she became very independent. She always was pretty independent, but she became very independent as far as like taking care of herself and thinking and things like that, And so it allowed me to be able to just have an adult relationship and have adult conversations with her. At about 4 or 5 years, I remember one time for both of us, my mom and I were having a conversation, and she said something to me. I don't even remember what I said, and this is not me patting my own back, but she said something to me, and she said, you are so wise about how you're looking at this situation. And she said, but I think that the reason why you look at that is because you're looking at it through the eyes of recovery. She said, I don't believe that you would have that perception or philosophy on life had you not been through the hardships that you had had in addiction, and if you hadn't gotten sober, and if you hadn't been surrounded by the men and the women that helped you get to this point, and you didn't have your spiritual foundation and all of that. She said, I don't believe that you just, if you didn't have any addiction issues at all, and you had just gone on with your life, that you would have this view of the world that you have. And so I'm so grateful for recovery, because to some degree, I feel like the way that I look at the world and the philosophy that I have and the perception that I have of people and the world and things like that, which at times has been skewed, and I've needed to fall on my ASS and been aligned and been humbled many, many times in my recovery. But, through my lens of recovery, I have been able to see the world in a completely different way, and I am so grateful for that, and I am so grateful to share that with other people, because recovery really isn't just about putting down the drink or putting down the drug. It's about the life afterwards. It's about what you receive, the gift that you receive afterwards, and how you see things, And so I'm very grateful for that. That being said, I do want to say that like in early recovery, and early recovery can be 30 days to 6 years to 10 years for a lot of people, depending on how you feel in that state. Early recovery is defined by the alcoholic or addict. Like, it's really not defined by somebody else. Like, I just kind of like assumed, like for me, early recovery was kind of like my first 3 years. After that, I just kind of felt like I was, a little bit better on, the road. But that's not to say that it couldn't be tougher for somebody else, or that it wasn't easier for somebody else a lot earlier. But that's not to say that in early recovery, they're taking down a tree next door because a tree fell last night in a storm. So if that's what you hear in the background, I apologize. But, I want to clarify that in early recovery, not having the drink or the drug is very, very difficult. And going through cravings is very, very difficult. You know, when I was doing this question and answer yesterday, I got a lot of questions about cravings and how I got through cravings. And, you know, it really wasn't day by day for me or taking one day at a time. It was literally taking minute by minute for me sometimes. It was sitting down, you know, like my kitchen counter, my island, and I had, like I said, like the numbers of drug dealers, and then I had like the numbers of people in recovery, and I would call them, you know, until they, whatever distractions of the world, and you know, they would help me until, you know, I could get through whatever I was getting through, or they would come and pick me up, or they would take me somewhere, they would take me to a meeting, or we would go out to eat and we would talk about it until I could get through that, you know, and then I would get through it until the next craving hit, And cravings were very, very real for me in early sobriety, very real. And they were very tough, you know, like I literally felt like if I couldn't use, like I was going to fall apart. Like in my head thought, you have to use. And I'm so grateful that I picked up the phone. You know, we talk about this 1,000-pound phone in recovery, that it's so heavy that we have a hard time picking it up and asking for help. I'm so grateful that I picked up the phone and just asked for help. There's no easy way to get through the cravings. There just aren't. You know, you just have to ask for help. You just have to ask other people to share their experience, strength, and hope with you, and be by your side. Sometimes that's all it is, you know. There was this movie back in the day that I used to watch, and it was with Kelly Martin, and it was called Her Last Chance. It was like an MTV movie, and she was like an addict that had gone in and out of treatment, and she struggled. And at one point, I think it was Jenna Elfman that played her sponsor. She called her sponsor, and she had like pills or something, and she called her sponsor, and Jenna Elfman came over to her house, and she goes into the bathroom, and she makes her flush them down the toilet. That was literally how people were to me in recovery, you know? I can remember when I first got out of treatment, this guy that I was friends with, I don't think he was my first, well, anyway, I had a first sponsor, and then I had a second sponsor, and I had several people in between there that like were temporary sponsors that kind of helped me. But anyway, this guy came over and he helped me, and I was cleaning out my apartment, and I had like all these wine bottles up on top of my kitchen counter, and then I had like martini glasses and margarita glasses. I mean, my kitchen was dedicated to alcoholism. It just was. And he said, okay, the first thing that we're going to do, and this guy at the time was like a year or two sober. I mean, he wasn't like 10 years sober. And he said, the first thing that we're going to do is get a trash bag, and we're going to take down this shrine to alcoholism. And I was like, what? And so we started like he made me take down all these bottles and put in the trash bag and whatever. And I think at the end I had like 2-3 trash bags or whatever. I mean, I was so mad that I had to like throw out these margarita glasses and these, because I wasn't necessarily done at that point. Like I wasn't convinced that I was done, you know? And so at the end, I had all these trash bags that were full of glass bottles and glasses, and they're very heavy. And so he goes, okay, let's take them out to the dumpster. And so I like pick up a bag, and I'm like looking at him, and I go, are you going to help me? And he goes, oh no. He goes, he was like, that's your burden to carry, or something like that. He said something to that degree, right? And I was like, damn it, you know? But like those were the lessons that I learned early on that were very, very helpful for me, you know? When I was struggling with patience, like when I was really having a lack of patience in my life, my sponsor would say, you're going to go to the gas station and you're going to stand there and you're going to hold the door for 3 people to walk inside, or you're going to let 3 people go ahead of you in line, because you're going to learn about patience. Like you're going to, you know, learn patience. Somebody asked me yesterday about service work. When I was in early sobriety, my sponsor would say, okay, your service work today is to go to Walmart, and you're going to put up all of the empty grocery carts at Walmart, and you're going to go put them all up. That's your service work to the day, to be of service to others. It doesn't necessarily have to be about recovery, of just being service to your community, you know? And those are the things that stick out to me the most, you know? My sponsor in early sobriety was like, every day you're going to make your bed, and you're going to like keep your apartment clean, and you're going to be proud of the environment that you have, and things like that. And that was a way of me to have a sense of who I was as a person, not just like not just as a person in society, but like to have more respect for myself, because when I was using, I didn't keep my apartment clean. I never changed my sheets. I know it sounds gross and dirty, but that's just who I was. You know, I slept with an ashtray in my bed, which turned over a million times. And so like to get up every single day and the first thing I did was to make my bed. I still do that today, you know, and my bed is made every single day because I love to have a made bed because it makes me proud of my environment, you know. So those were things that I learned in early sobriety that really, really helped me. And it was very much that whole kind of like Karate Kid mentality of like wash on, wash off. You know, it wasn't like I was necessarily being taught specific lessons about things. It was like through the actions of doing, I'm trying to think of other things that I did, but through the actions of doing certain things, you know, I was able to learn certain things. Like for one thing, like I didn't have a lot of money, you know, like I didn't have a job in early sobriety. My dad wasn't giving me any money, obviously. He bought me groceries for the week and he would buy me a carton of cigarettes and that was it, you know? And so I didn't have money to go out to Perkins or Denny's and whatever. And so a lot of people in early sobriety would buy me cheeseburgers or whatever after a meeting. And it meant so much to me. And today, when I am able to take a newcomer out somewhere and buy their cheeseburger, or if Tanya and I split their meal, you know, it's like I'm able to give back what was so freely given to me. And it's amazing how this program works, you know? And in that moment, you know, like my sponsor would say, just say thank you. Allow that person to do something for you. Allow that person to be willing to help you, you know? Be willing to take help. That was something that was so hard for me because I was so like, no, I don't need any help. I'm independent. I can do everything on my own. To let somebody buy a cheeseburger for me the first couple times was so hard. Like it was really hard, you know? And so all of that is so amazing to me today that I was able to learn some of those valuable lessons in early sobriety through things that really had nothing to do with recovery whatsoever. I want to read part of this comment that I got because I think it's a really good question. Somebody said, as someone not in recovery, I've been around a lot of people who are and around people who are using. My question is, as you were changing your life, aside from your dad, what were the most impactful things friends and family outside of recovery said or did that helped find your way, or helped you find your way? Little moments that made you remember, or maybe you remembered when you were down or struggling. Things that maybe made you stop and think, made you feel a little stronger, or gave you a little hope. So I read this comment yesterday, and I was actually thinking a lot about this. And there's one thing that stands out to me that people still do to this day that means a lot to me. And I know it's going to sound so simple, but I'm going to get to that in a second. I think, first of all, if you have friends or family that are out there using, okay? I've talked a lot about setting boundaries, setting limits. Go to Al-Anon. You know, if it's somebody that you're super close with, like a spouse or a child or a family member or whatever, you know, go to Al-Anon. It's a friends and family program, for a 12-step program for friends and family members. Go to counseling. Get a counselor that's very educated in addiction and help you walk through that, you know, and what to do, how to set limits and boundaries, how to not let that toxicity into your life. Other than that, there's not a whole lot that you can do other than to maybe schedule an intervention, which, like I said yesterday, they don't always go the way that you want them to, or to let that person know, if you ever want help, I'm here for you. If you want treatment, I will help you get treatment. That doesn't mean I'm going to pay for treatment. That means I might help you get on a waiting list for the Salvation Army, or that means that I might help you, you know, find a halfway house, but I will help you get help, okay? And I will be here for you. You can say those things to people, you know. If they call you at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're drunk, you don't have to take the call. You can talk to them for 5 minutes on the phone. I do this with people in recovery all the time. I'll listen to them for 5 minutes on the phone, and then they're drunk, and I'll say, hey, listen, why don't we talk tomorrow when you're a little bit more coherent? Well, I'm coherent. No, you're not. But that's okay. But tomorrow we can talk. Are you okay? Are you safe? Yes, I'm safe. I'm fine. Okay, well, tomorrow we'll talk, you know. Sometimes they call, sometimes they don't, you know? What I've had to realize in my life, and I was taught this early on, is I cannot make somebody drink and I cannot make somebody get sober. I don't have that kind of power. I only have power over my recovery, you know? But I think that's the only thing that you can really do for somebody that's actively using, to let them know that you will be of support to them if they want help. If they don't want help, you really don't have a whole lot of power over that situation anyway. For somebody that is sober and getting sober, let them know the same thing. Hey, I'm here for you. If you need to talk, I'm here for you. If you need a ride somewhere, I'm here for you. If you need a ride to a meeting or, you know, whatever, like, no, I'm not going to give you cash. I'm not going to give you money. You know, if you want money for cigarettes, I'll maybe buy you a pack of cigarettes if I condone smoking. You know, if you want a fountain pop, I'll buy you a fountain pop. If you want a dinner, I'll buy you a dinner. If you want groceries, I'll buy you groceries. That was the first thing that the doctor told my dad. My doctor was my dad's friend. He said, do not give him money. Do not give an addict or an alcoholic money. He said, you want to give him food, take him to the grocery store and buy him food, but do not hand him over $100 cash. And so my dad, like, that was it. And I've talked a lot about that on my vlog channel, but I can talk about that sometime over here at the point where I know a lot of people are like, oh, Peter has a trust fund. I wish I did, but no. At about a year sober, my dad and I had the conversation about him never giving me money again, and you know, in 27 years, my dad has never given me any money that I have not paid back. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that I have stood on my own 2 feet and been independent, you know, in all of that time. But as far as what are actions that you can do to help somebody, I don't know why this was immediately where my mind went, and I don't even know that it was so much that I remember it in early sobriety, but today, at 28 years sober, like, it's so cool that people, like, think of me as a sober person. When we go to barbecues, okay, or when we go to somebody's house for a dinner or something like that, and they have thought of me, like, as far as having something to drink, and I don't mean just like, do you want a glass of water? Because that is so just kind of daunting this is the second time I've used that word today, but that's kind of just daunting as a, you know, as a person in recovery. It's like, okay, how about, I mean, I love water, don't get me wrong, but you know, when I go to like my friend Erin, she always has, and you know, she and her husband both work in recovery, but when she has like a barbecue, you know, she'll like think of me and she'll be like, oh, I got you like these special lemonades that you can have. And I'm like, that is so cool, you know, that you thought of me and knew. Or when somebody will call me and say, I know Peter doesn't drink, what soft drinks does he like? Like my cousin Caroline always does that, you know? And it's like they think outside of the box to include me in that, you know? It's the same, to some degree, it's kind of like the same thing as being a vegetarian, but not, because it's like my safety of being, you know, an alcoholic in recovery. But it really means a lot to me. And I can remember the first time we went to our friend's house and she had this dinner for us. This was the first time that it happened with Alex, because he was kind of taken aback by it. And we got there and she had gotten like a bunch of stuff from like Trader Joe's, and she had like special lemonades for me, these little bottles of lemonade. And I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. And she didn't really know about my recovery a whole lot. I think that's why it took us, you know, kind of aback, you know? And I was it really meant a lot to me that she really thought so much that she went there, you know? So it's just, I think little things like that, making people feel safe. You know, like if you have a dinner party or a holiday thing and you have not seating the person next to the person that's going to be drinking the most, you know, just little things like that, you know, or I don't know. It's little things like that mean a lot to me. But that one small thing for me to this day always means a lot to me. I don't know why. When people know, like, okay, Peter's sober, and like everybody in my life knows I'm sober, right? So when they know that I'm sober and they specifically go out of their way to have something special for me that they know that I'll like, or they ask ahead of time, right? Like, hey, we're not going to have anything here. If you want something, bring it. Like, even that means something to me, right? And I'll have Alex stop at the gas station on the way and I'll get a fountain pop or whatever, you know, like that means a lot to me, even that they think of me, you know, and they think of like my enjoyment at that event as well too, that I'm not going to be wanting to drink beer or, you know, whatever. So I think like just thinking it through and being conscious of me being a person in recovery and being aware of that, like that means so much, you know? So anyway, thank you for that question, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video today, and I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.